Hello, and welcome back to the Art of a Well-Lived Life. I'm Katie, your host, and today is going to be a little bit different because I don't have a guest. And I thought I was going to, my first thought was to do a solo episode and just talk about, again, sort of why I chose to do this podcast and where we're headed. And then I was traveling and I went out to Southern California to see both my boys live in the same town. And so I was actually going to interview them and talk about from that generation, they're 26 and 31, what does it mean to them to live a well-lived life? And we were just so busy having fun and fully enjoying each other that we never got around to it, um, which I think is speaks for itself. And it was great. So that will be for another time, and we'll get my daughter on there too, and we'll have an interview with all of them. So for today, I thought, and I do have some notes down here. I don't always love to read from notes because it just feels so like I'm reading. But I also didn't want to forget anything. Um, so I'm just showing up today. I know that my episodes usually, I've agreed to myself that I'm going to drop them on Wednesday. And yesterday I was traveling all day. So it's here today, Thursday. Um, and we're just gonna, it'll be a shorter podcast today because it's just me. So for any of you that don't know the story, my dear friend and mentor, Dr. Gladys McGarey, and I had a podcast. We had an Instagram live for 3.5 years. Um, and at the time, she was 100, 100 to 103 and a half. And she passed away last year. She was almost 104. And in that time that we were doing our Instagram lives, she also wrote and published and became a bestseller of her book, The Secrets to a Well-Lived Life, Six Secrets to a Well-Lived Life, and which you can buy anywhere. And again, her name is Dr. Gladys McGarey. And so these conversations that we had on Instagram, um, just real, it was so beautiful. We would call each other, a half hour before we went live and just say, what do you want to talk about? And I would always say, well, Gladys, what do you want to talk about? And she always had some idea. And then we would just go from there. I was like, great, we'll start there and then we'll just see where that takes us. And she loved that. She just loved the back and forth of our conversation and just where it led and what we would talk about. It was just so much fun. So when she passed, I was so sad. It was so sad. And decided that we would keep going with the Instagram live. So I still do those every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern. And I am on, my co-host now is her son, Dr. Bob McGarry. And so he and I get on there and we talk about all kinds of fun things. And he's a really great person to have a conversation with. So it's a lot of fun. And we have a great community over there that has stayed with us and that interact. And so it's super fun. So you should check that out. That is either on my Instagram, Dr. Katey Hauser, or it's also, you can find it on Dr. Gladys's, which is Be Glad, MD, Beglad, Be Glad, MD. So that's how that all started. And then in December of last year, I decided that I would love to continue these conversations in a place that was a little more like had a home where they could live more easily. And I was thinking I would start interviewing a lot of the people that interviewed Gladys, because once her book came out, she was on 200 podcasts in the last 2 years of her life. So it was pretty amazing. Like she just was ramping up speed. in her later years. And, she would say that she finally found her voice at 93. And, um, and it was just such a beautiful thing to be part of her life as she was going out in a blaze. And so anyway, I gave myself a deadline that I would start these before her 1 year anniversary of her death, and I did. So we're on the seventh episode, I think now. And so I just wanted to share with you sort of the why and why I'm doing this, and that I will continue to discuss things about a well-lived life. And so, on my path through chiropractic, through art, through healing, I have come to know that wellness is not just the absence of illness. So it's really how we choose to live. It's the quality of our relationships, our creativity, our courage to express, and the way we show up for others and for ourselves in the world. So for me, living well is about alignment between what I value and what I create and how I move through the world. It's not about perfection, as you can see by this podcast, which I am happy to say. I'm putting this out there and I'm okay with being a C student. So it's not the most polished podcast that's out there on the planet, but that's okay. So it's not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about listening to the whispers inside that say this matters or something matters or this is just where I need to be headed. This is what I need to do. And it can feel pretty uncomfortable. Like, I was a little nervous to come on here by myself today. Um, and I'm just making the commitment to show up to myself and to show up with the commitment of what I said I was going to do, and also as a legacy for Dr. Gladys. And that, she found her voice at 93, and I feel like she handed me the baton and was like, okay, I'm 63. Okay, here you go. Go get it, And so it's such a great honor to carry that forward for her. Um, so this podcast is a space to celebrate the art of being human, the beauty, the mess, the learning, the light. Um, so as I continue with this podcast, I'm going to have, healers and artists and great thinkers and people living with beautiful intentionality. Um, but I also want to share more episodes like this one, shorter solo reflections that remind us of the power that each one of us holds in our lives, one conscious moment at a time. Um, and I'm hoping that every episode leaves you feeling a little more inspired, maybe a little bit more awake to what might be possible for you. And this last weekend, I also I'm a chiropractor, but I also share and lead people in the practice of art medicine, which is right behind me. That is one of the portal paintings that I have done more recently, and it's an 11-layer process. I learned it from my teacher, Alexis Cohen, who will be on this podcast at some point. To talk about creativity and what that means and how that shows up in your life. But I was out in Santa Barbara and I was leading 5 women through this art medicine portal making process. And it's just such a beautiful deep dive and using uh, color and organic symmetry and prayer and meditation and writing. There's words underneath all of that. So between each layer, uh, there's a lot of intention and prayer. And it was really a beautiful experience because there were 3 young women in their 20s, and then there were 3 older women, myself included, in their 60s. And it was so cool to be in that environment where there were the crones and these young, beautiful women coming into their own and the sharing that happened. It was really beautiful. And the space where we were is called the Boho House Collection. Collection? Yes. And it's in Santa Barbara, California. And the woman Megan and her husband run it, and it's just such a beautiful, intentional space. So when we talk about a well-lived life and living from intention, uh, this space was so supportive just by the mere fact that it was created with so much intention. It was beautiful. It just felt like, we were there for one day, creating these portals from 9 to 4. And it just felt like we were so held energetically by the space. And then my son also swooped in to make us a beautiful lunch. And so we were supported in that way as well. Um, so it was just, it reminded me of exactly what I'm speaking about when I speak about what does that mean for you, a well-lived life? What is your art of living well? What helps you feel alive, balanced, and on purpose? And maybe it's something simple like painting or cooking or serving or loving or watching the light come through the windows and, shining on the water or shining through the trees or, I mean, just the clouds. It could be anything. So paying attention and slowing down. And if you feel inspired, share it with me on Instagram. Send me a message. I would love to know. I would love all the reflections of what does that mean to you to live a well-lived life? And it's moment by moment. I'm not done yet, and none of us, we don't know when our last breath will be. So, my invitation to you all and to myself is to live in the moment and live with intention, and every breath live from that place. And I'm gonna just share one more thing. So I was with my boys this week, well, Sunday to Tuesday. And just what a joy. I was out there to mostly see my youngest, although my oldest lives out there too, but my youngest had been living there for 2 years and I hadn't been out to see him and see what he's created. And it was so moving to see how this young man has moved into this community with such intent. He's created such a bright light everywhere he goes. I felt like I was the mother of a movie star because when I was in a space where he was either cooking, which he's a chef, or playing music, he's a drummer, people were coming up to me and just telling me how much they loved my son because of the life that he brought into their lives and into their workspace and into their food and all of it. And I just was so moved. And it was like, if there's nothing else I do besides have created three beautiful beings that are a light in the world and that share such brilliance and such creativity, and they're really fun to be around, and they're just amazing humans. Like, it's just the best. So it was a really heartfelt 3 days. I was crying a lot with just pure emotion of gratitude of watching them move through the world. And and it was just really beautiful. And so I just wanted to share that as well, that living a well-lived life, it means whatever that means to you. And if so, share with me. I would love to hear. I really, going forward with this podcast, I really would, my goal is to create the community like Gladys and I did, where we were creating conversations with people and for people and hopefully leaving them inspired. And so that is my hope for this podcast. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up and for being part of my this growing community of heart-centered humans. And remember that the art of a well-lived life isn't about longevity, it's really about living fully with intention and heart. So until next time, keep creating your art of living well. I'm so grateful that you're here. And if this inspired you, share it with a friend. I would appreciate that. Trying to, it's kind of like lighting the candle, lighting somebody else's candle, and they light another, and they light another. And if enough of us are sharing the light, it's just going to lift the energy in the world. And we could use a little bit of that right now. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you again next week. Bye.